I had just returned home after a long, exhausting day at work, eager for nothing more than a quiet evening. The city outside our apartment buzzed softly in the background, the familiar hum of comfort after a day of deadlines and meetings. But the moment I stepped through the door, I sensed that tonight would be far from ordinary. He was sitting in the living room, calm and composed, a glass of whiskey in hand. He looked up at me, and I immediately noticed a new intensity in his eyes, a look that was both serious and daring. "You're home early," he said casually, but there was a subtle tension in his tone that made my stomach flutter. Yes, the meeting ended sooner than expected," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He set his glass down and leaned forward slightly. "I've been thinking," he began. And then, with a calmness that made my heart skip a beat, he said the words that would change everything. "I want us to have a different kind of closeness. Almost every day, I want us to explore something new together." I froze, my mind spinning. Explore something new. My first instinct was disbelief. Was he joking? But the seriousness in his eyes told me he was not. "Wait, what do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. He smiled, the kind of confident, teasing smile that always made my pulse race. "I want us to rekindle our connection in ways we've never tried. I want us to be closer, to excite each other, to step outside our comfort zones. I trust you, and I know we can do this together." My mind was a whirlwind of confusion and curiosity. Part of me wanted to laugh and say, "You're insane." Another part, a quieter, more adventurous part, was intrigued. What did he mean by closer? How far was he willing to go? I don't understand," I admitted, my heart racing. How would this even work?" He reached out and took my hand, and just the warmth of his touch sent a thrill through me. "It's about connection, about trust, about bringing the spark back," he explained softly. "It's not about anyone else. It's about us, rediscovering each other, keeping the excitement alive. And I think you'll want this too, once you see what it feels like." I laughed nervously, unsure if it was from relief, disbelief, or anticipation. "This sounds risky," I said. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" He nodded, leaning closer. "Yes. I've thought about it a lot. I want us to try something bold, something exciting. We'll set the rules together, and it will be our secret. Something that makes us stronger, not weaker." I stared at him, feeling a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. There was something magnetic about the way he looked at me, something that made me want to step into the unknown. "Almost every day?" I asked, curiosity creeping into my voice. "Yes," he said softly. "I want this to be real, to be meaningful. To bring us closer than we've ever been." My mind raced with possibilities. Could this really work? Could such a daring, unusual idea actually strengthen our bond instead of breaking it? And then, almost instinctively, I realized that the thought of stepping into this unknown world with him made my heart pound. "Okay," I said finally, surprising myself. "Okay, let's try it." He smiled, victorious and gentle at the same time. "You won't regret it," he whispered, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "This will be the start of something unforgettable." As he pulled me into a close embrace, I felt the thrill of anticipation ripple through me. My life was about to change in ways I hadn't imagined, not through fear or chaos, but through something far more intimate, the promise of a secret, shared connection that only we understood. The morning after his shocking request, I woke up feeling as if my mind had been turned upside down. Thoughts raced through my head in every direction. On one side, my rational self screamed, "This is absurd. You've never agreed to anything like this. You're stepping into dangerous territory." On the other side, a curious, daring part of me whispered, "What if this is exciting? What if this actually brings you closer?" I lay in bed for what felt like hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to untangle my feelings. I had always been cautious, someone who valued rules and loyalty, but the idea of this secret arrangement ignited a spark of intrigue. It wasn't just about breaking routines, it was about possibility. About discovering something in our relationship that we had never dared to explore. When I eventually got out of bed, he was already in the kitchen, making coffee. The aroma filled the apartment, comforting and familiar, but it couldn't mask the tension that had begun to weave between us. He looked up and caught my gaze, that same intensity in his eyes that had both excited and unnerved me the night before. "Good morning," he said casually, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But I could see it in the curve of his smile, the satisfaction of knowing he had stirred something in me. "Morning," I replied, trying to sound normal. Normal. Right? That's exactly what we're not anymore. We moved through the morning with an awkward rhythm. Conversation flowed, but every glance, every touch, carried weight. It was as if the very air between us had shifted, charged with something electric and unspoken. I found myself brushing against him accidentally, or not so accidentally, feeling the warmth of his hand when we reached for the sugar, the subtle brush of his shoulder as we moved past each other. Each gesture set my pulse racing, a quiet confirmation that this new arrangement was already changing us. All day, I couldn't focus on work. My mind replayed every word from last night, imagining the possibilities, the ways this could bring us closer, or drive us apart. I felt guilty for entertaining such thoughts, yet I couldn't deny the thrill. What was once ordinary, his smile, his touch, even his presence in the room, now carried a new meaning. It was as if every small moment had become an unspoken invitation. By evening, the tension had built to a nearly unbearable level. When he came home, I noticed how his eyes lingered on me just a little longer, how his movements seemed purposeful, yet casual. The room felt smaller, as if the walls themselves were leaning in to watch the silent game we were beginning to play. "You've been quiet today," he said softly, sitting beside me on the couch. "Thinking about last night?" I swallowed hard. How could I explain the turmoil in my chest? The mixture of fear, curiosity, and longing. Instead, I forced a small laugh. "Maybe. Just work stuff, you know." He didn't push, but his hand brushed mine, deliberate and warm. That simple touch sent shivers down my spine. I realized that the arrangement wasn't just about some abstract idea, it was already influencing us. Every look, every gesture, every shared moment became a chance to explore this new closeness, to test the boundaries of comfort and desire without crossing lines we weren't ready to face. As the night wore on, I noticed a subtle shift in my thoughts. The fear and hesitation that had dominated me earlier was slowly giving way to curiosity. Could this really work? Could this unusual agreement bring us closer instead of driving a wedge between us? The answer seemed to lie in the quiet intensity of his gaze, in the unspoken promises hidden in his smiles and gestures. Lying in bed that night, I felt a strange mixture of anticipation and apprehension. My mind replayed every glance, every touch from the day, and I realized that the most thrilling part wasn't just the idea itself, it was the uncertainty, the secret, the potential for connection that we were about to explore together. And as I drifted into a restless sleep, I understood something important. The challenge ahead wasn't just about following a pact or keeping a secret. It was about discovering how far we could push the boundaries of trust, desire, and intimacy, and whether that journey would bring us closer or break us entirely. The next evening, the air in our apartment felt different, heavier, charged, like it was waiting for something to happen. I could sense it before I even opened the door, the tension, the anticipation, the unspoken understanding that tonight was going to be the first real test of his shocking proposal. He was waiting in the living room when I arrived, as if he had known the moment I would walk through the door. He stood near the window, the city lights casting long shadows across the room, highlighting the calm determination in his expression. I felt a flutter in my stomach, not fear, not excitement, but something in between. "Hey," he said softly, and the simple word felt heavy with meaning. "Hi," I whispered, trying to steady my voice. I couldn't stop noticing the way he looked at me, the intensity of his gaze. Every moment before this had been filled with conversation, tension, hints, and subtle gestures, but now it was different. This was a beginning, the first real step into the world he had proposed. We sat on the couch together, close but not touching. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, like a magnet pulling me closer. He reached for my hand casually, as if he were merely brushing it, but the touch was enough to send a shiver through me. I realized that even the smallest actions could carry weight, could ignite a spark that neither of us could ignore. "I know this is unusual," he said quietly, breaking the silence. "I want us to take this step slowly. To test it, to feel it, together." I nodded, unsure how to respond. My heart was racing, but I was also curious to see where this secret pact would take us. "I'm ready to try," I admitted, my voice soft but firm. He smiled, a slow, almost triumphant smile that made my pulse quicken. "Good," he said. "We'll start simple. No rules beyond honesty and connection. Just closeness, trust, and seeing where it leads." We moved closer, sitting side by side on the couch. His hand brushed against mine again, this time more deliberately, and I felt the tension between us grow. It wasn't about physical desire alone, it was about understanding, anticipation, the thrill of stepping into something unknown with someone you trusted completely. For a moment, we just sat there, hands intertwined, breathing in sync. Words weren't necessary, the silence carried as much meaning as speech ever could. I realized that the intimacy he had promised wasn't about extremes or dramatic gestures. It was about connection, attention, and the subtle ways two people could reach each other's hearts without speaking. He leaned slightly, brushing his shoulder against mine, and I felt the heat of his presence. My thoughts raced. What am I doing? Why do I feel so alive right now? It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "Are you nervous?" he asked softly. I nodded, smiling despite myself. "A little," I admitted. "But it feels exciting too." He squeezed my hand gently. "That's how you know it's real," he said. "If it didn't matter, it wouldn't make your heart race like this." We spent the evening talking, laughing quietly, and sharing stories in a way we hadn't done in months. It was intimate, yes, but not in the way most people think of intimacy. It was about vulnerability, about leaning into each other's presence, about exploring the thrill of trust and anticipation. Before we knew it, hours had passed. The city outside had grown quiet, the lights dimming as the night deepened. We stayed close on the couch, wrapped in a sense of connection that felt almost sacred. It wasn't physical in the way one might expect, it was something more powerful, the bond of shared curiosity, of daring to step into the unknown together. As I finally got up to head to bed, he took my hand again, holding it tightly. "Tonight was perfect," he whispered. "This is just the beginning." I nodded, a mixture of nervousness and excitement in my chest. I didn't know what lay ahead, or how far this pact would take us, but I felt certain of one thing: our connection had changed tonight. Something invisible, profound, and thrilling had taken root between us, and I knew, deep down, that neither of us would ever see our relationship the same way again. And for the first time, I felt the true weight of his words, the promise of his pact, and the thrilling uncertainty of a journey that we were embarking on together. The days that followed were strange, thrilling, and quietly intoxicating. Our secret pact had been set in motion, and already, it was reshaping the way we saw each other. It wasn't that anything had changed outwardly. Our routines continued, work and errands and obligations, but underneath it all, a current of anticipation ran between us, invisible yet undeniable. I found myself noticing him in ways I hadn't for years. The way he would pause mid-sentence to glance at me, a hint of mischief in his eyes. The subtle shift in his tone when he asked a simple question. Every gesture, every look, felt like a secret code meant only for us. And I couldn't help but respond in kind. There was a thrill in keeping up the game, in the knowledge that our connection was something intimate, hidden, and electric. One evening, after a long day at work, I returned home to find him waiting in the kitchen, a small smile on his face. "You're home early," he said, as if noticing the change in me was completely natural. "I just wanted to finish up a few things," I replied, pretending to be casual, though my heart was already racing. He leaned against the counter, casually crossing his arms, yet his gaze stayed fixed on me. "You've been different lately," he said, softly. "More alert. More alive. Are you feeling it too?" I swallowed, unsure what to say. I was feeling it, the subtle pulse of anticipation, the excitement that came from sharing something so private with him. It was addictive. And yet, the thought of revealing too much scared me. "I think I am," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's unusual, but in a good way." His smile widened. "Good," he said. "That's exactly what I wanted. Something that makes us notice each other again, really notice." That night, we spent hours talking, more intimately than we had in years. Not about the pact directly, not about any rules or plans, but about our dreams, our fears, and our little obsessions. The closeness we felt was different, charged with the knowledge that we were sharing something private and thrilling. I realized that it wasn't just the excitement of the secret. It was the way the secret made ordinary moments feel extraordinary. The small gestures became my favorite part of the day. When he left work, the way he would send me a simple text saying, "Can't wait to see you," made me shiver with anticipation. When I cooked dinner, he would brush past me, fingers lightly grazing mine, leaving me feeling both startled and exhilarated. Every shared glance became a spark, every accidental touch a thrill. I began to see the way our connection affected him too. He was more attentive, more playful, more engaged in our conversations. He laughed more easily, teased more freely, and seemed genuinely excited to share even the smallest parts of his day with me. It was as though the secret pact had unlocked a new layer of our relationship, one that had been dormant for years. Yet, beneath the excitement, a part of me remained cautious. I couldn't shake the thought that a secret like this, if mismanaged, could cause tension or misunderstanding. I reminded myself that trust was at the core of everything we were exploring. Without it, the thrill would fade, and the bond we were building could shatter. And still, I couldn't help but smile whenever we were alone together. Every laugh, every subtle gesture, every lingering glance reinforced the intimacy that had quietly grown between us. The secret wasn't just thrilling, it was transforming us, making each moment we shared feel like a private adventure, a game only we understood. By the time we finally settled in for the night, I felt a quiet satisfaction, a sense that something significant was happening between us. Not just the excitement of the secret, but the realization that our connection had deepened in ways neither of us could have predicted. And in that moment, I understood that the pact, strange as it was, had the power to bring us closer than ever before, if we handled it carefully, and if we kept the thrill alive without losing ourselves along the way. As I drifted off to sleep that night, I realized that the secret we shared wasn't just exciting, it was transformative. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of anticipation for the days to come, eager to see how far this extraordinary connection could take us. Days turned into a rhythm I hadn't anticipated. Our secret pact had become a quiet undercurrent in our lives, something that made ordinary moments feel electric. Every glance, every casual touch, carried weight. Even small conversations felt intimate, charged with a subtle thrill. Yet, the more time we spent in this secret world, the more I noticed a shift. Lines that had once been clear were starting to blur. Simple gestures, brushing past him in the kitchen, lingering at the doorway when he walked by, felt heavier than they should. I caught myself thinking about him at unexpected times, imagining moments we hadn't even experienced yet. It was exhilarating, but it also scared me. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I felt his hand brush against mine. We didn't speak, didn't acknowledge it outright, yet the air between us seemed to hum with unspoken understanding. My heart raced in a way that was new, unfamiliar. I realized that our connection was no longer just playful, it was seeping into every part of our daily lives. I tried to focus on rational thoughts. It's just the excitement of the pact. It's not, more than that. But even as I tried to convince myself, the pull was undeniable. I caught him watching me with a subtle intensity, and I knew he felt it too. The unspoken tension was no longer just thrilling, it was shaping how we interacted, how we thought, and how we felt about each other. That night, I lay awake thinking about the boundaries we had set, and how easily they were slipping. It wasn't a matter of temptation or desire, it was something deeper, something emotional. The pact was supposed to strengthen our connection, but I realized that it was also exposing layers of vulnerability I hadn't expected. We were learning each other all over again, in ways that felt both thrilling and fragile. And yet, despite the uncertainty, I couldn't help smiling. There was a beauty in this blurred line, in the quiet knowledge that we were discovering something profound. The challenge, I realized, wasn't maintaining control, it was embracing the vulnerability, trusting that our connection could handle the intensity. A week into our secret pact, I began noticing things about him I had never seen before. Small habits, gestures, and expressions that seemed trivial at first became loaded with meaning. It was as if the secrecy of our connection had peeled back layers of familiarity, revealing hidden sides of each other we had ignored in the rush of routine. One evening, after dinner, he suggested a walk. The city was quiet, the streetlights casting long shadows that seemed to mirror the quiet tension between us. We walked side by side, sometimes brushing shoulders, sometimes falling silent, letting the words we didn't speak carry weight.